You're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next hour. As India's budget 2026 countdown begins, economic survey to be tabled in Parliament today. All eyes set on key growth and inflation signals. PM Narendra Modi interacts with energy sector CEOs as part of the ongoing India Energy Week, says India will play a decisive role in global energy demand-supply balance. Trump warns Iran time is running out for nuclear deal as US military builds up. Tehran says it's ready for nuclear deal but vows powerful response to any attack. Ukraine calls for energy ceasefire as fighting rages on US, says work underway to reconcile territorial issue of Donetsk at talks. US Fed cites elevated inflation, stabilizing labor market to keep rates unchanged. Stocks edge higher, dollar pairs some gains. And on to the details now. As the countdown for India's budget 2026-27 begins, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will table the Economic Survey 2025-26, an annual report on the economic health of the country in the Parliament today. Apart from being the report card for economic performance of the country during the financial year, the survey of late has also doubled up as a document for bold, forward-looking policy ideas for the government. Now, let's understand what is Economic Survey and who prepares it. Well, the Economic Survey is a very comprehensive annual economic review which is prepared by the Economic Division of the Department of Economic Affairs under the Ministry of Finance. The Economic Survey bears the name of the Chief Economic Advisor, who at present is Dr. V. Ananta Nageswaran. Also, the Economic Survey presents an in-depth analysis of macroeconomic parameters, key fiscal and financial indicators, and forward-looking assessments. The document also serves as an important reference point, often signaling the broad policy approach and priorities that will likely shape the forthcoming union budget for 2026-27. Well, on Wednesday, President Draupadi Murmu addressed this joint sitting of the members of both houses on the first day of the budget session. In her address, President outlined key achievements of the government while also highlighting focus areas such as economic growth, infrastructure development, social justice, technological advancement, and inclusive governance. President said that confidence in Made in India defense platforms have grown stronger after Operation Sindoor.
Addressing the joint sitting of both houses of parliament at the start of the budget session, President Draupadi Murmu said that over the past 11 years, the economic foundation of the country has grown significantly stronger, and despite various global crises, India has remained the fastest growing major economy in the world.
बीते 11 वर्षों में देश की आर्थिक नींव बहुत मजबूत हुई है। दुनिया में अनेक प्रकार के संकटों के बावजूद भारत दुनिया की फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग मेजर इकोनॉमी बना हुआ है। भारत ने महंगाई दर को कम रखने के अपने रिकॉर्ड को और बेहतर किया है।
The president noted that India's manufacturing sector has reached unprecedented milestones, especially in high-tech exports. In the first 5 months of financial year 2025-26, India's smartphone exports crossed 1 lakh crore rupees, and that the reach of the Indian industry is expanding into green mobility. She mentioned the fact that this year, India has begun exporting electric vehicles to more than 100 countries. Turning her focus to the energy sector, President Murmu emphasized the shift towards sustainable power as a key pillar of national growth. She pointed out that apart from nuclear energy, India is also making rapid progress in the solar power sector. So far, 2 million rooftop solar systems have been installed. Highlighting a major legislative reform for rural India, President Murmu said that Viksit Bharat Ji Ramji law is a cornerstone for future village-level development. She added that this new framework is designed to provide a stronger safety net and more consistent work opportunities for rural citizens. The president mentioned how India is moving ahead in all spheres. Focusing on Operation Sindoor, President said it was a befitting reply to the face of terror, showcasing India's tri-service prowess. She said reforms undertaken by the government are being accelerated all around to fulfill the dream of Viksit Bharat.
बीते 10-11 वर्षों में भारत ने हर क्षेत्र में अपनी नींव मजबूत की है। ये वर्ष 2047 तक विकसित भारत की तेज यात्रा का बहुत बड़ा आधार है। पिछले एक दशक में 25 करोड़ देशवासी गरीबी को हराकर गरीबी से बाहर निकल के सरकार के तीसरे कार्यकाल में गरीबों को सशक्त करने के लिए अभियान और तेजी से आगे बढ़ा है।
Talking about Nari Shakti, President said that India was moving forward with the mantra of women-led development and how various schemes are contributing to women's empowerment.
मेरी सरकार की प्रगतिशील सोच और नीतियों के परिणाम स्वरूप देश के हर महत्वाकांक्षी क्षेत्र में महिलाएं तेजी से आगे बढ़ी है। देश ने एक और बड़ा माइलस्टोन हासिल किया है। राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा अकादमी यानी एनडीए में महिला कैडेट्स का पहला बैच पास आउट हुआ है।
PM Narendra Modi praised the president's address in a social media post on X. PM stated that today's address was comprehensive and insightful. It reflected India's remarkable development journey in recent times while showing a clear direction for the future. PM added that it reaffirmed our collective commitment to further speed up the reform express and the emphasis on innovation and good governance. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, with Budget 2026 approaching, focus is on simpler taxation and a wider tax base. Previous budgets have focused heavily on reducing direct taxes for individuals and corporations to boost disposable income, consumption and corporate investment.
Budget 2026 is expected to send a strong message with bold, people-centric tax reforms. The focus is likely to be on a simpler taxation, a wider tax base and stronger trust, using fiscal policy to boost growth, consumption and investment. Personal taxpayers are hoping for meaningful relief. On indirect taxes, GST reforms remain central. Industry expects rate rationalization, simplified tax structures, fast input tax credit refunds and incentives for long-term investments. For corporates, the demand is clear: stability and predictability in tax policy.
The government should stabilize the tax structures so that it is very crystal clear to everybody. There is just 0 to 1 option, which should be like, it should be in binary. The capital gain, which is taxable, that is kind of stopping lots of investors to invest in a startup. So that should be freed for some more time.
The BFI sector's expectations from the budget are largely about system strength, how well financial intermediaries can mobilize savings and transmit credit efficiently. One key area is tax parity between deposits and bond investments.
Now, talking of the budget of 2026, we expect some more rationalization into slabs, and it will be good if there are only 3 major slabs in terms of direct taxes. We also expect some kind of revision in TDS norms to make sure that businesses have more cash to run.
Recent union budgets underline a clear trend. India's tax policy is becoming simpler and more growth-oriented. Under the new tax regime, income of up to 12 lakh rupees is tax-free, rising to 12.75 lakhs for salary taxpayers with standard deduction. Compliance has improved with rationalized TDS and TCS norms, higher LRS thresholds, and decriminalization of minor delays. Custom duties have also been simplified by reducing tariff slabs. Overall, India's tax framework is steadily moving from complexity to simplicity, supporting growth and inclusive development.
Budget 2026 is about encouraging innovation and ensuring that taxation becomes a catalyst in the nation's journey towards a resilient and inclusive Bharat. With camera person Mukesh, this is Tripti Tripathi reporting for DD India from New Delhi.
Well, as Budget 2026 approaches, India's green push takes centre stage. From renewables and green hydrogen to climate finance, India is powering sustainable growth towards a Viksit Bharat. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya reports for more.
As India advances towards Viksit Bharat, the government's commitment to clean and sustainable growth continues to gain momentum, setting the context for expectations from the upcoming Budget 2026. The Ministry of New and Renewable Energies Budget 2025 stood at 26,549 crore rupees, marking a sharp 53.5% jump, an increase of over 9,250 crore rupees compared to the previous year. This expansion clearly underlined the centre's intent to fast-track India's green transition. A decade ago, the renewable energy budget was just rupees 956 crore. In 10 years, allocations have grown by an extraordinary 2,678%. Under the Modi government, the total MNRE funding over the last decade has crossed 93,386 crore rupees, reflecting a 955% increase in sustained public investment. Budget 2025 underlined the government's clear push towards accelerating the clean energy transition with a strong focus on capacity addition, grid integration, and creation of a new clean energy ecosystem.
Given the huge thrust to energy transition and the digital infrastructure, whose backbone again would be the green power, if you could expect certain domestic content requirement protection measures across the larger supply chain, wafers, ingots, eventually, or a clear policy directive, that provides more clarity. And possibly if there's some LTCG benefit for global investors to come in, I think that would bring in a lot more FDI, as opposed to that being shifted to various other countries in this volatile global political scenario.
The year 2025 also proved to be a turning point, recording one of the highest annual additions of renewable energy capacity in India's history, led by a record solar installation and a revival in wind power. With India already crossing 250 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel capacity, expectations from Budget 2026 are high. With a strong focus on clean energy, green hydrogen and climate finance, India's Budget 2026 is expected to underline a clear message. Economic growth and environmental responsibility will move together, steering the nation towards a sustainable, resilient and a truly Viksit Bharat by 2047. With camera person Mukesh, this is Tapas Bhattacharya for TD India from Delhi.
Well, the market participants are closely watching the upcoming union budget, hoping for policy continuity and selective tax reforms that could strengthen investor confidence amid global volatility. Well, expectations are rising for measures that deepen cash markets, rationalize transaction taxes, and attract long-term capital into India. Here's the report.
Market participants are looking to the upcoming union budget with expectations of policy stability and targeted tax rationalization to support investor sentiment amid significant global uncertainties. Fund managers and market experts say measures to deepen the cash market and attract long-term foreign capital will be closely watched when the finance minister presents the budget on Sunday. One of the key expectations is rationalization of the securities transaction tax or STT, especially in the cash market, which investors say has lower trading volumes and participation than the derivatives segment, partly due to higher transaction costs.
There's a lot of data that has come out that derivatives is much larger compared to any other country in the world. Cash market needs to get larger. So I think one way to encourage that is to look at rationalizing the STT slightly.
STT is a direct tax levied on the buying and selling of securities on stock exchanges. At present, delivery-based equity transactions attract an STT of about 0.1%, while intraday trades and derivatives carry lower rates. Another key demand is the rationalization of long-term capital gains or LTCG tax to ensure stable foreign investment inflows.
Given the entire volatility, globally, There are talks around STT charges and LTCG. But more importantly, if you could get some benefit on long-term capital gains, I think that would ensure a lot more FII, FDI money pouring in from pension funds, sovereign funds, which is good to build a capital-intensive energy transition play in India.
Under current rules, gains from equity investments held for more than 1 year are taxed as long-term capital gains, while gains of up to 1,25,000 rupees a year are exempt. Any LTCG above that is taxed at 12.5%. The demand for tax rationalization comes amid heavy selling by foreign investors in domestic markets. In 2025, they sold equities worth over 1,66,000 crore rupees, the largest annual outflow on record.
India is in a very sweet spot, as they call it, Goldilocks moment. Low inflation, high growth. And the Indian growth story is being stamped by the rating agencies across the world, the big institutions around the world like IMF, World Bank. We are growing well above 7.5%. All projections are indicating above 7%.
Experts add that while no major tax overhaul is expected, incremental steps to ease market friction, boost investor confidence and support sustained capital inflows could go a long way in strengthening domestic markets. The government's approach towards market-friendly taxation and capital market reforms will be closely watched.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Netanyahu wins crucial first vote on 2026 budget, staving off risks of early elections. US, Denmark and Greenland begin Arctic security talks as Trump pushes strategic interest in Greenland. And storm-triggered landslide forces mass evacuations as several homes teeter on the cliff in Sicily.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. And moving on, US President Donald Trump urged Iran on Wednesday to come to the table and make a deal on nuclear weapons, or the next US attack would be far worse, while Tehran responded with a threat to strike back against the United States, Israel and those who support them. Now, Trump wrote on social media, and I quote, "Hopefully, Iran will quickly come to the table and negotiate a fair and equitable deal. No nuclear weapons. One that is good for all the parties. Time is running out. It is truly of the essence," unquote. Trump noted that his last warning to Iran was followed by a military strike in June. Also, Trump said a U.S. naval force headed by the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln was approaching Iran. The warships started moving from the Asia-Pacific region last week as U.S.-Iranian tensions soared following a crackdown on protest across Iran by its clerical authorities in recent weeks. Well, Trump has repeatedly threatened to intervene if Iran continued to kill protesters, but the countrywide demonstrations over economic privations and political repression have since abated. But he also said the United States would act if Tehran resumed its nuclear program after the June airstrikes by Israeli and U.S. forces on key nuclear installations. Early on Wednesday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told a congressional committee the Iranian government is probably weaker than it has ever been and its economy is in collapse. He predicted that street protest will spark up again.
Well, I don't, in the thousands for certain. And look, I think regimes, including that one in Iran, have learned that when you start shooting people in the head with snipers, it's effective. I mean, it works, and they've done it, and it's horrifying. And that's what we've seen. That regime is probably weaker than there's ever been. And the core problem they face, unlike the protests you saw in the past on some other topics, is that they don't have a way to address the core complaints of the protesters, which is that their economy is in collapse.
Meanwhile, Ali Shamkhani, an advisor to Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, said in a post on X on Wednesday that any military action from the United States will result in Iran targeting the US, Israel and those who support it. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi warned on X that Iran's armed forces are prepared with their fingers on the trigger to immediately and powerfully respond to any aggression. Araghchi said earlier he had not been in contact with US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff in recent days or requested negotiations. And for more on this, we have Akshay Dongre joining us. Well, Akshay, good morning. From what we're hearing, is the US actually gearing up for another strike, or is this primarily coercive diplomacy about rattling Iran again enough to get them back to the negotiating table? Where do we see this going?
Well, it's hard to speculate at this point in time because honestly, after Venezuela, you never know what kind of action may be coming in from the United States as far as its adversaries are concerned, geopolitically. So the situation is far complicated than even if the Venezuelan case, because earlier, yes, there was, sort of a tension going on between the two sides. But here in Iran have already been sort of conflicts between the Iran and the US, where the US had already bombed the Fordo Hills of Iran earlier, stating that they were planning their nuclear installations there in that region. But what we are seeing right now is these kind of threats being given by the United States and counter threats being given by Iran. But so far, none of the parties are resorting to diplomacy. No way out is given to either of them as far as the US is concerned or the Iranian regime is concerned. They are stating that any kind of Iranian regime is stating that any kind of threat will result into a response, and the US clearly is in no mood to take no for an answer as far as nuclear policy is concerned. So the tension remains at an all-time high, but honestly, Lipakshi, at this point in time, this may very well lead to a full-blown conflict as far as the US action is concerned, given the fact that given the success of Venezuela, US remains confident as far as its armed forces are concerned, and in that confidence, it may act in an overconfident manner as well.
Right, Akshay, as Iran is talking tough about hitting back, as you also mentioned, how real is that risk right now, and how concerned are the regional partners out there about a full-blown escalation?
Well, the regional partners are quite concerned as far as a full-blown conflict is concerned, because from what we have seen, if there is any kind of conflict in that part of the world, then one thing is for sure that the entire region is going to face the consequences of that. In fact, Lipakshi, if there is an attack on Iran, the other countries there in the region also will not be able to sell their oil resources to the world. The trade supply will be cut off because of the fact that nobody will be willing to trade in that part of the region. US has already secured Venezuela as far as its own major oil supplies are concerned, that it has the capability to refine as far as the heavy crude from Venezuela is concerned. And other countries may find other alternatives at maybe a costlier price, but the already under stress economies of the Gulf region may totally collapse if there is a conflict, and that perhaps the reason why earlier bombing threats that were given to Iran by the US were cancelled, and there were sources stating that the Saudi authorities and some of the other regional allies had to literally request the US government to stall the bombing campaign and stall the attacks on Iran to ensure that the economies there do not crash.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Akshay, for all that. And moving on, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday secured a majority in Parliament to pass his government's 2026 budget bill at first reading. Now, Netanyahu has led a minority government since last year, and on Tuesday voiced concern before the vote about securing the backing of lawmakers who left the government in July. Failure to pass the budget by March 31st would automatically trigger the dissolution of Parliament, and elections would have to be held before the end of the current parliamentary term in November. The 120-member Knesset approved the budget bill at first reading by 62 votes to 55. Parties which left the government but are refusing so far to bring it down threatened not to back the budget bill if Netanyahu does not make good on his promise to pass a law exempting religious students from conscription. And the tension between Russia and Ukraine doesn't seem to rest as the call for energy ceasefire among Ukrainians are growing. The last two Russian missile and drone attacks on the capital Kyiv in January left about 1 million people without electricity and 6,000 apartment buildings without heating. Now, after weeks of repairs, about 700 buildings still lack heat. Energy Minister Denis Shmyhal, writing on Telegram after a meeting devoted to energy on Wednesday, said lakhs of Kyiv households remained without power. Now, President Volodymyr Zelensky said this month Ukraine's damaged energy system was meeting only 60% of the country's electricity needs this winter, with electricity generation capacity of 11 gigawatts against a need of 18 gigawatts. Now, the maximum electricity imports from EU countries combined with power cuts across the entire regions are allowing the system to remain balanced nevertheless. Also, with no breakthrough during the trilateral talks between US, Russia and Ukraine, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that there is active work underway to reconcile the territorial issue of Donetsk at US-mediated talks to end Russia's conflict in Ukraine. Also, Russian President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly said Russia will take all of Ukraine's Donbas region, of which Moscow's forces control 90% by force unless Kyiv gives it up in a peace deal. Donetsk is part of the Donbas region. Meanwhile, Kyiv has said it will not gift Russia territory that Moscow has failed to win on the battlefield. Polls show little appetite among Ukrainians for territorial concessions. And moving on, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Wednesday technical talks between the U.S., Denmark and Greenland over hatching an Arctic security deal are now underway. While Rubio said he's confident in getting a positive resolution on Greenland, he appeared before the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee where he spoke on the Trump administration's interest in Greenland. He reinforced Trump's stance on the Arctic territory, stressing it as a long-standing national security interest for America.
In the case of Greenland, I'll say we're in a good place right now. We had excellent meetings with the Secretary General of NATO. In fact, even as I speak to you now, there'll be some technical level meetings between us and our partners in Greenland and Denmark on this issue. And I think we have in place a process that's going to bring us to a good outcome for everybody.
Meanwhile, the foreign ministers of Denmark and Greenland agreed to create a working group aimed at addressing differences with the U.S. during a Washington meeting earlier this month with Vice President J.D. Vance and Rubio. Well, the group was created after President Donald Trump's repeated calls for the U.S. to take over Greenland in the name of countering threats from Russia and China, calls that Greenland, Denmark and European allies forcefully rejected. And in Italy, a storm-triggered landslide has left several homes in the Sicilian town of Nesemi precariously perched on the edge of a cliff on Tuesday. More than 1,500 people have been evacuated in Nesemi after a landslide left buildings hanging over a collapsing slope, fueling anxiety and anger among the residents. The buildings were overhanging the edge after a large section of the slope gave away. Nesemi is located on a plateau that authorities say is slowly collapsing towards the plain below. Well, early on Monday, the Italian government declared a state of emergency for Sicily, Sardinia and Calabria after severe storms hit the regions last week. And still to come in DT India News Hour. Maharashtra's Deputy CM Ajit Pawar's last rites to be held with full state honours. Beating retreat ceremony to mark grand finale of 77th Republic Day celebrations at Vijay Chowk today. And India expands global AI outreach with pre-summit engagement in Johannesburg. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khuran, and moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with CEOs of the global energy sector as part of the ongoing India Energy Week 2026 on Wednesday. During the interaction, the CEOs expressed strong confidence in India's growth trajectory. They conveyed their keen interest in expanding and deepening their business presence in India, citing policy stability, reform momentum, and long-term demand visibility. Now, welcoming the CEOs, the Prime Minister said direct feedback during these roundtables helps refine policy frameworks, addresses sectoral challenges more effectively, and strengthens India's position as an attractive investment destination. Highlighting India's robust economic momentum, Prime Minister stated that India is advancing rapidly towards becoming the world's third largest economy and will play a decisive role in the global energy demand-supply balance. Prime Minister Modi also observed that while the global energy landscape is marked by uncertainty, it also presents immense opportunity. He called for innovation, collaboration and deeper partnerships, reiterating that India stands ready as a reliable and trusted partner across the entire energy value chain. Also, the high-level roundtable saw participation from 27 CEOs and senior corporate dignitaries representing leading global and Indian energy companies and institutions. While India and EU free trade agreement is being seen as an important milestone in one of India's most strategic economic partnerships. Designed as modern rules-based trade partnership, various labor-intensive sectors such as textile, leather and footwear, tea, coffee and others believe that the FTA responds to contemporary global challenges while enabling deeper market integration and protecting domestic priorities.
The EU consumes around 12% of India's tea exports in value terms and nearly 55% of India's coffee exports in quantity terms, highlighting the strong demand for Indian produce. The EU is also one of the largest consumers of rubber products exported from India. With the implementation of this FTA, tariff reductions, improved market access and technology transfers are expected to significantly ease existing trade barriers, transaction costs, and address long-standing regulatory challenges. This would undoubtedly help widen India's export portfolio to the EU, both in value and quantity terms, and also support sustainable economic growth.
The key benefits that India gets from this India-EU trade partnership is access to wider export markets. It also gives us a bigger base for project exports. It brings us technology for high value exports, and it also positions India as a global supply chain hub. The India-EU trade agreement elevates India's position by positioning India as a long-term, strategic, high-value trading partner, moving it from only a cost-competitive exporter.
The India-EU agreement significantly strengthens India's global trade position by providing stable, predictable access to one of the world's largest and most sophisticated market. It helps Indian exporters integrate into European and global value chain, enhances India's credibility as a reliable supplier, and promotes diversification of trade partners. Strategically, it reduces over-dependence on any single market, positions India as a key economic partner for advanced economy. Overall, the agreement reinforces India's role as an emerging global trade and manufacturing hub.
Well, the last rites of Maharashtra Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar, killed in a plane crash, will be held with full state honours on Doordarshan at 11 a.m. IST at Vidya Pratishthan in Baramati, Pune. Well, the Maharashtra Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar and 4 other persons died after an aircraft carrying them crashed in Pune district of Maharashtra on Wednesday morning. The aircraft met with an accident during landing in Baramati, 100 kilometers from Pune. According to flight radar, the flight took off from Mumbai at 8:10 a.m. IST and it disappeared from the radar around 8:45 a.m. IST. Meanwhile, police have registered an accidental death report in connection with the aircraft crash and further procedures are underway. And moving on, a bipartisan congressional delegation led by U.S. House Armed Services Committee Chairman Michael Rogers and Ranking Member Adam Smith visited New Delhi January 24 to 28. During the visit, the delegation met with senior Indian officials and held discussions with Indian and American defense industry leaders. Also, the delegation's meetings focused on expanding defense cooperation and accelerating collaboration on defense technology. They also explored opportunities to enhance co-development and co-production between the United States and India in support of shared security objectives. Also, the delegation included Representative Jimmy Petronis and senior committee staff. The visit underscored sustained U.S. engagement to advance defense cooperation and deepen strategic coordination with India. Well, the 30th International Conference and Exhibition on Broadcast and Media Technology, BES Expo 2026, will begin in New Delhi today. The 3-day landmark event will bring together global leaders, policymakers, technologists, broadcasters and innovators under the theme Broadcast Intelligence Innovation, Make in India for the World. The focus of the conference, to be inaugurated by Information and Broadcasting Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw, will be on the transformative role of artificial intelligence in media and broadcasting. It will also include a large-scale exhibition showcasing cutting-edge broadcast technologies, indigenous innovations and global solutions. The event aims to strengthen India's position as a global hub for broadcast technology, innovation and manufacturing, aligned with the Government of India's Make in India vision. And the beating retreat ceremony marking the culmination of the 77th Republic Day celebrations will be held on Thursday at Vijay Chowk in New Delhi. President Draupadi Murmu, Vice President C.P. Radhakrishnan, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and other union ministers will be present on the occasion. This year's beating retreat ceremony will feature a total of 30 performances, captivating spectators with foot-tapping music by bands from the Army, Navy, Air Force and Central Armed Police Forces. The ceremony will commence with the massed bands playing Kadam Kadam Badhai Ja, followed by melodious tunes by the Pipes and Drums Band, while the ceremony will conclude with the ever-popular patriotic tune Sare Jahan Se Acha, played by the Baglas. While India is steadily expanding its global outreach in the field of artificial intelligence as well, positioning itself as a key voice in shaping the future of emerging technologies. In Johannesburg, the Consulate General of India, together with the India Business Forum, convened a pre-summit engagement focused on enhancing international cooperation in the AI sector, reflecting India's expanding diplomatic and technological engagement as well.
India's vision to play a leading role in the global artificial intelligence ecosystem is gaining momentum across continents.
India's approach has consistently focused on democratizing access to technology while using it as an engine for growth and inclusion. The emergence of AI is the latest chapter in this long journey.
In Johannesburg, the Consulate General of India hosted a pre-summit engagement aimed at strengthening international cooperation in the AI sector as part of India's broader diplomatic and technological outreach.
And this collaboration is very important because if you were to look on the current geopolitics,
it's important that the like-minded countries, they start collaborating with each other. And especially when you look on the areas of AI, I think it is becoming very much important. And if you look deeply on AI, the issues of language models, the issues of countering, the bias, that has been, one of the areas that, the Global South has actually struggled with. So I think it's very important that we have that type of collaboration.
The initiative reflects India's vision of responsible, inclusive and impact-driven artificial intelligence, with a strong emphasis on global collaboration, skills development and equitable access to technology.
India has adopted multi-language LLM developments. So they have created 8 categories in 8 regions, right, to adopt language learning models, and probably 8 sectors to do it. The adoption of AI through such excessive creation of LLM models for greater adoption is what South Africa needs to also start looking into.
Are right that there are certain jobs that cannot be replaced by AI, and we need to have an appreciation of that.
India's outreach places particular focus on partnerships with the Global South, recognizing the role artificial intelligence can play in driving sustainable growth, innovation and social development.
So the understanding of the African local nuances of our industry makes a huge difference instead of just trying to roll out technology for the sake of technology. We want to see the benefits of this flowing into communities, into schools, at grassroots levels. We want to see that there's skills development enhancements and training that takes place to improve economic outcomes for the poorest of the poor.
Stakeholders were briefed on the India AI Impact Summit 2026 to be held in Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi this February, bringing together governments, industry and innovators to advance real-world AI solutions for sustainable development.
So India is organizing an AI Impact Summit in Delhi next month. And India is basically focusing on not only technology, but on the impact of artificial intelligence in terms of its impact on livelihood, on skilling, on inclusion and equity and development. So in terms of development of AI in India, we are basically following every value chain, like from chips to digital technologies to development, infrastructure to human capital. So I think that this is the one aspect which differs in terms when you compare with other countries.
For DD India in Johannesburg, South Africa, I'm Nazneen, for People, for Planet and for Progress.
Well, moving on, heavy snowfall has turned Manali into a beautiful winter destination, attracting a tourist surge while simultaneously causing traffic disruptions. More in this report.
The picturesque hill station of Manali is now pristine white, following a fresh spell of snow. Tourists are thrilled and, despite travel challenges, are keen to celebrate the weather and the beautiful state.
As I visit Manali, this is not my first time, this is my second time. First time I visit, there was no snow, but the second time I went, there was a snow I was not expected. Plus, when I saw the snow, it's very, it just amazed me. Then when I play with the snow, I didn't feel that, how to explain, that much excitement I got.
Snowfall, however, has also brought expected troubles. The local administration is busy clearing blocked roads and restoring disrupted power supply.
नेशनल हाईवे जो हमारा मनाली से कुल्लू तक का है, इसमें सिंगल लेन के लिए जो है वो अपना बहाल कर दिया गया है. इसके अलावा जो लेफ्ट बैंक है हमारा, इसका भी क्लियरेंस जो है बर्फ की हो गई है, और बाकी जितने भी हमारे रोड्स हैं, चाहे वो बीआरओ का है या पीडब्ल्यूडी के हैं, उनको खोलने का काम जो है वो चल रहा है.
The administration has assured tourists that all major routes will soon be fully operational, ensuring safe travel across the region.
All right, and now let's take a look at other stories making news today. Well, Patnitop in Udhampur, Jammu and Kashmir received its first snowfall of the season, delighting tourists. The hill station saw a surge of visitors eager to enjoy the winter scenery. Local authorities advising tourists to take precautions on slippery roads. A rare red long-tailed minivet has been spotted at Corbett National Park, exciting bird watchers. Experts say the sighting highlights Corbett's rich biodiversity. A yellow-green female minivet has also been seen in the park. Meanwhile, Corbett is home to many bird species besides its famous big cats. A 10-foot cobra was rescued by local wildlife volunteers in Bahalda in Mayurbhanj, Odisha. The brave team captured the snake safely and released it into a nearby forest. Locals alerted the rescuers after spotting the giant snake near homes. Authorities praised the volunteers and urged caution around the wild animals. And time now for a short break. We'll be back in a while.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipak Shukuran, and on to some business news now. The U.S. Federal Reserve on Wednesday kept interest rates unchanged, citing a resilient economy and easing risk to both inflation and employment, an outlook that could signal a lengthy wait before any further reductions in borrowing cost. Fed Chair Jerome Powell said economic strength has continued to exceed expectations, prompting policymakers to hold the benchmark rate at 3.5 to 3.75% by a 10-2 vote. He noted the central bank is well placed to judge if future easing is necessary, depending on shifts in inflation or labor market conditions.
The U.S. economy expanded at a solid pace last year and is coming into 2026 on a firm footing. While job gains have remained low, the unemployment rate has shown some signs of stabilization, and inflation remains somewhat elevated. In support of our goals, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to leave our policy rate unchanged. Having lowered our policy rate by 75 basis points over the course of our previous 3 meetings, we see the current stance of monetary policy as appropriate to promote progress toward both our maximum employment and 2% inflation goals.
And in sports news, in Australian Open, world number 1, Aryna Sabalenka will take on Ukraine's Alina Svitolina in the first women's singles semi-final on Thursday. Svitolina faced Sabalenka in the semi-finals with a 10-0 record in the 2026 season and a perfect campaign in Melbourne, during which she has not lost a set so far. In the second semi-final, 5th seed Elena Rybakina will play Jessica Pegula. Rybakina booked her place in the semis with a dominant win over 6-time Grand Slam champion Iga Swiatek. Rybakina fired 11 aces to end Swiatek's career Grand Slam bid, winning 8 of the last 9 games to underline her authority. Well, Pegula, who ousted the defending champ early in the event, will play her first ever Australian Open semi-final. And defending champion Yannick Sinner eased past Ben Shelton in the Australian Open quarterfinals, setting up a blockbuster showdown with 24-time Grand Slam winner Novak Djokovic. The 2-time defending champion never looked in serious trouble as he brushed aside Shelton. 6-3, 6-4, 6-4. Sinner called his semi-final opponent and 10-time Australian Open champion Novak Djokovic an inspiration after his straight-set triumph. Sinner has a 6-4 win-loss record over the Serb and has emerged as the winner in the last 5 encounters. Meanwhile, Djokovic's quest for a record Grand Slam title continued after Lorenzo Musetti quit the quarter-final match with an inquiry after taking a 2-set lead. Speaking after the match, a disappointed Musetti revealed he had suffered an injury to his right leg. Djokovic surpassed Roger Federer with his 103rd single win at Melbourne Park, reaching a record extending 54th Grand Slam semi-final. The other semi-final will see world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz clash against 3rd-ranked Alexander Zverev. And goalkeeper Antoine Trubin scored a 98th-minute header as Benfica stunned Real Madrid 4-2 to secure a Champions League knockout place on Wednesday. Benfica were heading out despite leading 3-2 with seconds of stoppage time remaining before Trubin met a free kick to score the goal they needed to reach the playoff round on goal difference. Real had hoped to finish in the top 8 and go straight into the last 16, but their 15 points from 8 games was not enough as Benfica denied them an automatic spot in the round of 16. Andreas Schellsrup scored 2 goals for Benfica and Vangelis Pavdilis converted from the penalty spot, while Kylian Mbappe netted twice for Real in a hugely entertaining end-to-end contest. And Manchester City secured a top 8 finish in the UEFA Champions League after a 2-0 win against Galatasaray, ending the Turkish side's 3-match unbeaten run against English opposition. Pep Guardiola's side claimed 8th spot in the 8-game league phase to avoid the 2-legged playoffs and advance directly to the last 16 for a precious slice of breathing room in an already packed fixture schedule. And New Zealand picked up their first win against India in the 5-match T20 series on Wednesday after defeating the Men in Blue in the 4th T20 International at Vizag. Shivam Dube produced a blazing half-century of rare quality, but it wasn't enough to save India from a 50-run defeat. Dube's explosive 65 off 23 balls stood out in India's daunting chase of 216, yet the hosts were eventually bowled out for 165 as the Kiwis pulled the series back to 3-1. And in the latest ICC Men's T20 International Pair rankings, several top Indian players made significant gains following strong performances in the ongoing T20 International Series against New Zealand. Well, opener Abhishek Sharma continues to reign supreme as he extended his lead at the top after scoring 2 fiery half-centuries. Tilak Varma occupied 3rd place despite of not playing in the series due to injury, underlining his dominance in the format. Suryakumar Yadav also climbed up the rankings, jumping 5 places to 7th following his unbeaten 57 in the 3rd T20 International. Meanwhile, mystery spinner Varun Chakravarti continues to hold the #1 position among T20 international bowlers. Pace spearhead Jasprit Bumrah moved up 4 places to 13th and after claiming 3 wickets in the 3rd T20 International. In the all-rounders list, Hardik Pandya inched up 1 spot to 3rd, while Shivam Dube made a big leap of 6 places to the 11th position. And 5 Spanish military helicopters delighted beachgoers on Wednesday at a Rio de Janeiro beach with a performance marking the centenary of Spanish aviation. The aerial display was performed by the Patrulla Aspa, the current Spanish Air Force helicopter aerobatic display team. The performance is part of the celebration to mark the 100th year anniversary of the Plus Ultra flight, which was the first time successful plane crossing of the South Atlantic from the Iberian Peninsula in 1926. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.